Hello and welcome to another night shift. My name is Yazil, and today we want to show our items in the inventory. So before we starting to generate items and save them and stuff like that and going for the hash, I want to show them in our inventory. Let's activate that and going for the 2.2 as a login. And let's see, the splash screen goes away, hopefully. 3, 2, 1 now. You see here's my character 2.2 and here's my bag, and you see here is the inventory, the item we have out of the database from the last tutorials. So you can see here is my mana tube or whatever it is. And we want to make or show them here in our inventory. And basically what we're going to do is after we load that out of the database, we fire up an event, and that brings us to a new class of our new style of calling events. And we fire that up, and we will load the image out of the database, the inventory, now the item database, and show them here. Let's see, we're going here for the canvas and here for the main inventory and for here for the inventory, and you see here there is the new item, and that's basically this item here. Okay, how do I start that? First of all, let's go for the event manager. That's is necessary because when we fire up events on, let's pick up the scripts here. Let's say we go into the inventory manager after we load that here, our items, and set that into the database, and we would fire up an event. That means we have to get a reference in the slot script and stuff like that all the time. That makes it difficult because we have to have it static here, and another thing we could do that in the inventory script, but in the inventory script it is a little bit difficult because we could have more than one inventory. So let's go for a totally new style of handling events and triggers. And for that, I would recommend you for this site. That's the Unity tutorial, and it's a real easy way to create a messaging system. And we use exactly this script here, and we're gonna go there. So we're gonna make a new script here in our helper, and I called it just event manager. And after I made it, I linked it. Let's load the scene, the start scene. I loaded that to our game manager, and here you can see there's the event manager. Just put it in here. It has to be at any place somewhere on your items. So let's pull that up. Basically, it's the Unity event creating a simple message system. It's from tutor Adam Bruckner, and this is the link. And you just simply go to the Unity 3D and type in the search creating a simple messaging system, and you get that. First of all, we have a private dictionary, which is the name of the event we want to have, and a Unity event, and we call it event dictionary. And then we have a static event manager, and we call an instance, and we look if there is an event manager, just to be sure. If there one, we look for find an object of type event manager as event manager, and if that's not empty, or if that's empty, we have to go for one game object and put the script in there. Else, if it is, we call an init and return the event manager after that. So in the init, we just go and create a new directory, and just nothing more going on there. And for the users, for our script, we need these three functions, which is one start listening, stop listening, and trigger the event. So here in the start listening, we gonna look if that event is already there. If it's there, we just add ourselves there, and if it's not, we just create a new event. And in the stop listening, you go for look if the event is there, and if it's there, you remove yourself from the listener. And then is of course the trigger event, and here we just call and look for the event name in the dictionary and invoke that. So again, this is a plugin or a script which comes from Unity Direct, and you can see that here. Or just go to unity3d.com and going for search and looking for event or creating simple messaging system, and you will get to that tutorial. It's very interesting, and I recommend you gonna look into that if you want to need more or want to learn more about the Unity events. So, and since we have that, I already showed just to the game manager, and here in the event, put that in there. And what we want to do next is we have to write a slot script. So we have that already in an empty base, so we going for adding a few variables. We need the item prefab, which we want to make later on. Then we have the slot ID, and then we have the inventory name. And also we got the inventory item database, so we know where we come from. And we have the item database itself, so we have all the items in access. And then we have the inventory script, and the inventory script is called for me just inv. So on enable, we use our event manager.start listening we had, or I showed you before, and I called my event just spawn item at slots, and the function we're going to call is spawn item. And on disable, we call the event manager.stop listening, and then the name again, and here the spawn item again. So the spawn item is really easy. We just go and see if in our inventory database there is an item at the slot number slot ID, and we look for the item ID. If the item ID is 0, you remember in our items list or in the item database, the 0 is not set. We have no item which is 0 as an ID. So if that is not equal to 0, we're gonna start and spawning the item, and that's just a game object item go. So item game object is equal and to instantiate the item prefab. So we make a new game object, and then we're going to use the item transform.set parent, and where we want to have it, it's on this dot transform. And you may wonder why we use false here. That's we want to leave it as normal coordinates. If you type in true here, you will transfer to world coordinates, so your item is somewhere else and not in the same spot like this item here. And then we going for the get component item image. So in our game object we instantiate here, we have a component image, and there we want to look for the sprite, and the sprite we going to get out of our item database. So we're going to the item database dot item, and then we're going to look for the inventory database dot item slot id dot item id. So if there isn't one, we get the one out of here, so we are on the right spot, and we want to have the icon out of that. So let's go in Unity a sec and I'll show you that. So we want to, let's go for the item editor. So we go for the item 1, and we look for the icon here. So we look for this item here. So if we go to there, let's go back there. So the new item of the component image is the sprite out of our database. Not too hard, should be understandable. Just going to the item database and going for the item at the spot which is in our inventory database, and there we're going for the item ID, and then we look for this sprite. So that's just quite easy. Remember, you have to using Unity Engine UI, so you can have access to the image here, and that's just all we need for the moment in our slot script. So the next is, I would say, the inventory. In the inventory, of course, we have to, or we spawned this slot already, but we have to get the component slot, and in the slot we have to set our variables. So if you remember here, we have these bunch of variables and we have to set them in the inventory. So basically these for loops or this for loop generates our items, and we have to make sure that the slot script is filled with the right variables and the right stuff. So we're going for the inventory database and fill up the inventory database, the item database, inventory name, we call it, or we get it from this dot name, and the inventory script is this, and the slot ID, of course, is the I. So since we loop here, we going to have every item named with 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. So we got that already here. So that's just, we generate a new item and fill it up in the item database. We did that last time already. And that's basically the changes for the inventory script. And what we gonna do next is we have to call the event, and we do that in the inventory manager, and there we going just down here after we get the items out of the database and produce a new item into the item inventory database, the inventory item database. We trigger the event, and that's just event manager.trigger event, and then that's here the event name we defined here in our slot. So that's basically all we need on changes here in the scripts. So let's go to Unity, and we gonna create a couple things. We going close that. We going to the item system, and we are here on our item. In our item, we just have the image. So you just go there, right click UI image, that's our image, and you name it item, and after that you drag it here to the prefab. So let's delete that. Oops, I don't need that. And then we go into our slot, and there should be a couple things here, and the item prefab, you just drag that in here. So that's for that part, that's for that part, and the slot script, we already have that on this slot, and in the main inventory we have that slot already defined, so that's stuff we already had the last time. So after that you just click on start, and you're gonna see, hopefully, I'm not connected to the server, of course not. So we stop that, and we're going to the start, and going to start that, and we're gonna log in. And for 5 seconds we are here, and we see in our inventory the item is here. So that's basically all for this video. If you liked it, of course, leave a like message. If you liked it even more, I would be more than happy if you subscribe to my channel. And special thanks for being my patron is Tequila, a long time subscriber to the Patreon, and I'm very glad to have you. If you want to have such measures also in the videos, and your name be called, just go to the Patreon page and pledge for just $7, and you get, of course, not only the name, you get also access to all my source code. So happy night shift, and see you around. Bye bye.